So welcome back. Tonight we're talking to the President's Advisor on the Economy, Seth Terkper, who launched a book. This is his second book, actually, which is a book on taxation. Before we talk to him, here are highlights of what happened at the book launch.
At the launch of his new book, Value Added Tax in Africa, The Ghana Experience, Seth Terkper underscored the need to end the era of fragmented tax policies.
As we review not just the VAT, but the entire tax system, including ITAS from January this year, I think what we need to rethink as a nation is to remove as many distortions that really mimic the four core taxes, so that we allow GRA to implement them effectively and efficiently, and we allow businessmen to be able, to also comply, because it's business that collects most of the taxes.
For his part, Chief of Staff Julius Deborah urged the Ghana Revenue Authority to intensify its tax education efforts and adopt a more engaging approach to boost compliance.
Coming from the private sector, collection of taxes are good. We need it. Without it, we can't build a nation. But sometimes I find a little bit of a challenge with the mode of which some of your operatives handle the private sector people. Anytime there's a forum and you bring business people together, they seem to have an issue. I see LC power here from GRA. I'm using this occasion to encourage you to possibly let your PR department increase the level of education. Because if people are made aware as to why they have to pay their taxes, I'm sure they will gladly them to pay.
Delivering a speech on behalf of the Vice President, Chief of Staff at the Office of the Vice President, Alex Segbefia, commended Seth Terkper for his significant contribution to Ghana's tax reform agenda.
It's been said, he doesn't brag, doesn't boast. And I've often heard people say, oh, he's not a politician. I find it sad. The fact that somebody chooses not to play politics in a certain way does not mean he's not a politician. He just made a choice. Most of the time, most people are not brave enough to make that choice. Seth Terkper made his choice, and he prefers principles to what we call everyday politics. I am glad with what the Chief of Staff said. He has been vilified by our own. Today, many people have to stand back and say, well, actually, you got it right.
Meanwhile, the first copy of the book was purchased by the Chief of Staff on behalf of the President for 30,000 Ghana cedis.
According to Seth Terkper, any tax imposed in Ghana, apart from income tax, value-added tax, excise tax, and import tax, is a mere duplication of existing framework. Hence the need for the government to rather look at strengthening the existing framework to make it wholesome. Reporting for ChannelOne News, I am Samuel Akom.
Welcome back. So tonight we're speaking to Seth Emmanuel Terkper. He's the President's Advisor on the Economy. Earlier today, he launched his second book. It's Value Added Tax in Africa, The Ghanaian Experience. When I asked viewers to guess what book he would launch, I'm sure 99% of them will say it will be tax. Yeah. Is tax your favorite subject of all the things you do?
Yes, indeed. I've taken tax, as a subject in every course I have taken from undergraduate level. I read a Bachelor of Commerce where you do tax incrementally, right from year 1 through year 4, because KVAS, education was the 4th year. And the structure of the course aligns with the Institute of Chartered Accountants course. So most people who do VSc or BCom end up doing the professional.
Yeah.
So once I started doing that, that was also tax. Almost every section, all sections, have something to do with direct tax or indirect tax, because we talk about the difference, later. And then I went to the to do my master's, Kennedy School.
And there too, you did
Harvard
tax?
to be specific. Yes, I was doing master's in public administration. But then there was a program under the law school, you know, the School of Government and the Law School, and I opted, you know, so we were registered for both. So once you met your basic requirements for MPA in the Kennedy School, where you do public administration, some economics and the rest, you can cross-register to the law school. And so I did more tax.
So that
was where I did the VAT.
Tax law?
The tax law, complete.
At Harvard Kennedy School. Yeah. And then when you worked with IMF, you were working on tax?
Yes, I was in fiscal affairs department.
Oh my God.
And I work on VAT. To be frank, by then, Ghana had introduced the VAT through a very difficult, you know, which we will talk about.
Which is partly in the book as well.
Yes, so by the time, everybody knows it for one word, Kumi Prekum. So by the time I got to the IMF, yes, that was the main thing.
You are the tax man lucky to be spoke about.
Yes, but then because I was the fiscal affairs department, the fiscal affairs is fiscal. And I had done most of public administration because I started my career in the Ministry of Finance, monetary issues and others. So quite fascinating. So I added, you know, other public financial management aspects, which ties in with my accounting, you know, qualifications. So that's how come I'm able to.
So you actually are interested in the subject. You like tax. As an area of inquiry, it's something that excites you. I mean, I can't understand because
when it excites me, tax doesn't excite a lot.
When I did, I mean, it's a difficult area, both from an accounting perspective, from a law perspective.
Yeah,
it's very, very difficult to understand the various. It's a complicated area. Yet you seem to enjoy it.
Well, I don't dispute that because I said, you know, right from, you know, and I went to a business school. So you did a bit of, you know, a bit of tax. So as I said, right from year one of KVAS, there's hardly any year which you didn't do any tax. Then CA Ghana, part 1, part 2, part 3.
Tax.
Part 1, 2, and 3.
So now that you are the president's advisor, you know, so like for you, you are a hammer, so everything is a nail, right? No. So first, you worked with Mills at the IRS at the time, tax.
Who was a tax professional?
Then you became deputy minister, because you became almost like a commissioner. You worked with Mills. Then you became deputy minister when Mills made Kwamna Dufo finance minister. You were tax. Then you became finance minister under Mahama, tax.
No.
Now you are his advisor on economy, tax.
No. at that point, it becomes public financial management.
Okay.
And then you also have some insight into monetary issues from your economic side.
I hear.
So it's more diversified.
I see. Because it looks to me as if from now when Atufosin calls you and says, hey, president's advisor, the budget is coming, the tax part, what should I do? You say, just add more tax.
No, but remember he was my deputy.
I know.
And so yes. So
let me let's just backtrack a bit, and I'll come to VAT and all that.
Yeah.
So you are the president's advisor on the economy.
Yeah.
What's the difference between that and the minister of finance?
It's in the word advisor.
Okay.
Yes. You know, you have under our constitution a very serious executive role to play. You know, in terms of the way I like to describe it is in management, which is another thing I did. You know, you have line managers, but you have functional managers.
Okay.
So line managers may be like your good self. You know, you are in charge of production, you are in charge of your show. But then you have what you call the functional managers, who are more like the accounts officers, administration, who cut across. You know, in terms of salary, in terms of expenses. So that's the way I see my role in management terms.
So are you a line manager or a functional manager?
No, the line managers are the ministers.
So, okay.
Because they are the executive.
So you, Valerie Sawyer, Nana Oyelitha, are the functional managers?
We are more functional. But then...
President's advisor on specific areas.
But in strict management terms, we are staff officials of the president.
Of the president.
Exactly.
But
so
I suspect that if the president is going to meet the finance ministry team or the minister, he would talk to you because you'll probably be in that meeting.
Well, you attend some
yes, because you are his ears and eyes.
Economics and finance.
Exactly, because he has to do so many things.
Yeah.
You are like, Mr. President, don't forget that we need to highlight this, so remind minister to do this. Or sometimes he will ask you to remind minister to do this because you are like the interface between him and the minister on that issue.
Precisely. But then you have to know your bounds. You have
Okay.
to know that there is the person who is in charge of,
Okay.
my management, public administration is management. So that helps me, to feel comfortable in my shoes.
So if, for example, the president wants a report on an urgent matter, which has to do with fiscal issues, it's very likely that report will be CC'd to you whilst it's sent to him, because he will need your advice on how to interpret that report.
Precisely, it's advisory. You must always remember that your work is advisory, and especially if you have been Minister for Finance, you must be careful that you are not, pretending to be one. You are an advisor, and that is it.
You don't want to overstep your bounds to do what the minister should do.
In fact, the Constitution doesn't even allow you to do that, right? But for a technical person like me,
Yeah.
I'm
asking this because I noticed that the people who are his advisors, I may be wrong, they seem senior. Let me give you an example. Guzitano, Valerie Sawyer, Seth, Terkper. These are people who you can say have done a lot of what the ministers may have done in the past before.
Yes.
So in terms of the professional field, you are higher, you are more experienced than they are.
Yes,
Generally.
to an extent.
Okay.
Yes. But when it comes to somebody like Atu, as I always say, you also have to bear in mind that, whilst we were in opposition, he had become, ranking member of the Finance Committee, and he became leader of the House. So he has gained significant
his legitimate experience.
Yeah.
I get it.
So you don't look at it in a very narrow, sense.
How does the president feel about where the economy is so far? We are in June, so we've done half year. We've done our first budget in March. On a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being exceptional, 0 being abysmal, where would you, how satisfied is the president about the way the economy is functioning?
How do I measure my success? In order that you are not complacent about the medium term and the long term, which could be your successor in this case, or it could be something, a legacy.
So short term is 0 to 12 months. Medium term is 12 months to...
In my
yeah, no, I'll work with you.
Yes.
So 0 to 12 months is short term.
Ideally, yes.
Between end of first year and what year will give you?
I would say, second year, 2.5 to 3 years.
2.5 to 3 years is your medium term.
Yes.
And then long term is the
4
2028
years
election
and beyond.
beyond.
And that is why even in the budget, in preparation of the budget, if you want to look at it in budgetary terms, there's an annual budget, which is the ensuing year.
All right.
So, the budget to represent this year will be for 2026.
Yeah.
But then you have the medium term. If you go to the tables, you see estimates for what we call the medium term, right? And it will be 2027, 2028, and 2029.
Fair enough. So for short term, 0 to 1 year, we are in the 6th month. How satisfied is the president about the way the economy is moving?
As a halfway mark within even the first year, I would say satisfactorily.
Satisfactorily?
Yes, because there are measures that you have to use to say, I'm cautiously, because it's very short term. Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm cautiously happy. One, let me suggest 2 or 3. 2. We came in as a new government, of course with some experience, to complete the 4th review of the IMF program. It will be going to the board this July. It was to be end of June. All indications, including the staff, that's your measure, the staff who came to the country, are saying that we think that things have gone well and the various structural measures and benchmarks and things have been met, which means that you can be cautiously optimistic that the IMF board would pass your program and you would get some injection into the economy, which is the essence of an austerity, of an austerity program. Second, We knew that we had a lot of liabilities, to be paid, and we knew one or two of them, like the ones that was paid for pensions, so you were racking your head. This is a country which, which had defaulted, and you default because you don't have money to pay debt, and let alone other, compensation and the rest. Okay, you come in and you go back into your arsenal from the past, right? And the past being that you did something called treasury segment account, which means, where is the cash? How can I manage that cash effectively? Okay, which was under the budget division of the Ministry of Finance, under the minister now, who was the deputy head in charge. So where he comes and he does is to take control of the cash, which is sitting in various banks and other places, some of which could be used to buy your own bonds, right? So you see that, the short-term cash that you need to hit the road, you have gone into your past, right, and did a treasury signal account. You have gone into the past and did the quick fixes that are needed for forgiveness and the rest. Remember, these were reforms. So you have a bit of a smooth ride, in the sense that you are able to meet those very short-term commitments, arrears, you're able to pay salaries, you're able to do without, continue the hiccup, which the economy was. So that's the
also
two
is
examples.
going pretty well.
Yes,
So,
and then a third example would be, what's this Galamsey? It's not new. I've experienced it before. What are the features of the Galamsey as we analyze them in our manifesto? And we had things we wanted to do. So as we go through them, remember that many of the things are in the manifesto already. And they were in the dialogue. I mean, we were there when they were being discussed and everything. Right? So you set up a goal board. You get reps who have to do the marketing, right? And then you say we are going to add value. Remember, medium term.
Yeah.
It's the same policy, but you can't do that in the short term. So the first thing is to set up the gold board as quickly as possible. And then the haphazard marketing of the gold, you begin to control it. You can't stop it immediately. You start entering the forest reserves and the rest. As the president, to quote the president at this stage, the last time he spoke about it, he said, before he said we had taken control of 7, remaining 1, the most notorious.
Yeah.
Then within a short number of days, he comes out and he says that we have, and then you see what is this translation? How do you get satisfied? The reserves begin to be better, because then you are satisfied that, oh yes, the order I have brought into how to control the gold, like cocoa, more than the rest is, is yielding. But then that's where you have a caution, because having a gold board per se may not necessarily, because you have a cocoa board which was doing well, but was on its knees. So these are examples I would give.
So
for the
first example for satisfactory performance is the fourth review of IMF program. Pretty well. You hope the board will say we've done well.
Yeah.
Your cash flow management, liability management is going pretty well.
Yeah.
And then your mopping up of gold exports using the gold board is great.
Yes. Where the first two are routine.
And the
third
one is unique.
Use an IMF program
to do it.
Structural.
No problem.
Yes.
I'm staying on the third point.
Yeah.
So can we link the third point to the appreciation of the currency?
Absolutely, it's one of them.
It's one of the reasons why the currency is appreciating.
Yes, the currency. And then in fact, all three are part of
currency.
We are controlling expenditure better. And then also there is a natural part of it. The rains have been good. And that means that in terms of currency management or in terms of inflation, food comes up. And once you have a good harvest, you can know your food index will go down, because you don't have to import so much, right, and use more forex, the forex you are preserving and building.
So it looks like everything is going right, for us, some of which are not our doing, because we don't control the range.
Cautiously.
We don't control the world gold price, because the point around the currency appreciation, you need to admit that beyond mopping up the export of gold, the appreciation of the commodities price has also made it possible to have more money for your reserves.
Yeah, but that's where you don't control, and that's
what I'm saying. So I'm trying to say to you that some of the factors behind your success are not within your control.
Absolutely, and includes the Israeli-Iran war.
Which is why you use
which
the
has
word
affected crude oil.
satisfactory and not
Not
elated.
Complacent. Not complacent.
You are, so it's satisfactory. So things
But don't be complacent.
So if, for example, the gold prices plummet or oil prices go through the roof, we are screwed.
You'll be screwed for the end of the short term to the medium term. But see, that is where you ask yourself, we have been there before. HIPIC, we've been there, we've defaulted. What is it that we did to avoid some of those things? And that's when your structural policies from the past become important.
I see.
So whilst times are good, if you remember the minister said, we are rebuilding the buffers. So you build buffers only when times are good. So we are rebuilding the stabilization fund, we are rebuilding the sinking fund, you know.
Are those, again, I want to make this easy, simple. Are those things, sinking fund and stabilization fund, are they structural issues?
They are structural and they are your medium term. Because they are the medium term measures you need to stabilize the short term gains that you have made. And
So
you have to start preparing.
so you're saying if those are done, then you can be sure that in the medium terms, things will still be stable, if they are done well.
That's your goal.
So when you say sinking fund, are you saying that
Debt
there was
repayment.
just take your time. You know, a lot of people don't get these things.
Yes.
We have always had a sinking fund.
No.
Or they stop. Did MPP stop it?
They stopped it.
What did they replace it with?
They drew down.
They
and
took the
therefore
money out of
depleted.
it.
Yes.
So
That's why 3 oil fields.
that's why what?
3 oil fields. We started sinking from 1 oil field.
So is the new government is rebuilding the money in the sinking fund?
Yes, because if you borrow, whether household, business, or government, you must learn to pay.
So what does the sinking fund do?
The best expression of a sinking fund is a debt repayment account.
Where you put money so that when you owe, you use that money to pay.
So let me. Sometimes you are forced to do it. Let's try and come to employees, right? Your child is going to school. You're on a low salary. You want to buy a car. You don't have a salary where you can pay immediately. You want to buy furniture. So let's end it there. You go and borrow, you take salary advance, right? And you promise that you pay. The compulsory aspect is that because your account goes there, the bank is able to deduct a source. On the other hand, it can be voluntary, right? So if it's voluntary, then you have to have the discipline to know
put that percentage of your salary in there
precisely
to make those payments.
make
So that
the
is what the
repayment.
sinking fund is.
That's what a sinking fund is.
What
And
is-
it's in the Constitution.
What is a stabilization fund?
The stabilization fund is, we alluded to it, the stabilization fund is saying gold prices are good. There's been a debate I've been listening between Theo Acheampong and another professor and the rest. One is on the view that the gold prices could stabilize into gold. The other one thinks that because it's related to the dollar, and the dollar gains or loses its strength because of global developments. When the dollar strengthens, it's likely therefore CD will decline. So the stabilization fund says that beware that the factors that are good today
Will not last forever.
Will not last, and they could be reversed.
So put money in an account
And-
so that when there's a reversal, that money can give you a buffer.
Crude oil prices.
Is that in the Constitution as well?
It's in the Constitution.
Did
When we
MPP,
started-
did MPP put money in the stabilization fund?
It was a requirement in the Petroleum Revenue Management Act.
Did they do it?
No, they depleted most of it.
When you say they
though more-
depleted, they took the money out of it.
Yes.
This
You
is
know,
during
okay,
COVID or before or after COVID?
Yes, using COVID.
So during COVID, they decided that
Legitimately, they took
they
some
needed the money.
Yes,
So from
they
both
took it.
sinking and stabilization, they took. Post-COVID, did they replace it?
Yeah, that's the point.
They
It
did
wasn't
not.
yes.
So
Because if
you're-
the debt repayment accounts were being replaced and used, we would not have defaulted.
So since this government took over, how much have we accrued in both funds?
Oh, I can't give you the precise figures, but the minister has said.
Do we put money in it every month?
Yeah, we do. It's in the law. You
So,
know, when the
as
revenue-
far as you know, we are complying with that law.
we are complying. And the medium-term optimism comes, despite you're not wanting to be complacent, by continuing and knowing, as the president has been very keen to do, that I want to bring E&I back. I want to bring Shell back. I want to bring all the oil companies which left, which for the last 8 years, had investment where we never brought
So
even
he's
one
bringing the
field.
oil fields back. All right. Stay
Yes.
on the issue of funds. Last point. The previous government capped statutory funds. So Get Fund was capped. I think the health fund, the road
health fund and various DSC.
That meant that they did not put the full amount into those accounts.
For those purposes.
Yes. This government doesn't think that was a good idea.
No.
So you have uncapped those funds.
Yes.
Why?
Why? Because if there wasn't a need for it, it wouldn't have been set up to begin with.
So
if there wasn't a need, that's why we call them, that's it, I remember. That's why there are allocations for specific purposes. Right? So you are saying we're a country that is passionate about education.
Yeah.
Although there's another explanation in the VAT which we'll come to, I know.
Yeah.
When we come there. So we are passionate about education. So we increased the VAT rate by 2.5% after it was introduced at 10. Right, under Rawlings. And then we said, let's dedicate this 2.5%
to education.
To education. Because remember, the reason for Kumiprego is the fear that you will get money and you will misapply that you would. So we are saying, let's put it to a particular purpose which we can measure. That's why they are earmarked. We use the expression earmarked for a specific purpose. Then, the Secretary Kufuor came in. He needed to increase it from 2.5%, the VAT, right? You know, he said percentage of the VAT, to 15%. So he says, okay, the VAT debate was still raging. You oppose the VAT and everything. So when I increase it to 15%, I'll dedicate it to health. Because when you talk about social expenditure, these are the two.
Education and health.
Education and health. And they are one of the largest in the budget. So you want to do it well. So you want to assure Ghanaians that I don't want the 15% to go in and then I have the discretion of allocating it to education, to health. It might go to something which we are not. Ghanaians, in their wisdom, accepted it. Then it was increased to 17.5%. And we say, look, we have to build an infrastructure, a means of borrowing to build infrastructure because that's what will transform the economy. So when it went to 17.5%, the money was allocated to the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund. Okay? But the difference is that they were collected as a VAT. And one of the features of a VAT, right, is that when Citi, or what's your corporate name, when they pay VAT on all these nice things we see here, you are not the consumer. VAT is a consumer tax. If we didn't allow you, you are the agent for collection. So somebody who is also an agent for collection added it and you paid for it. Then you are not the final consumer. You are going to, let's say your product is advertisement. As we are doing now, you do a break and then you do adverts. Somebody is paying for it. You charge that person VAT. But your cost, you see, you
also
have
has a VAT I've paid.
The VAT you have paid, but you are not the consumer. So you are given the right as a registered tax collector, right, to deduct the VAT that you paid
for my
the
input
VAT that you charged.
Then the
on
net.
Your input.
Wonderful.
Then the net is what you pay.
Wonderful.
Cumulatively, it becomes, Now, so therefore, when you take out the Get Fund, you take out the NHIL, apart from the capping, right, which were part of VAT, GIF was not affected, right? When you take them out and you call them straight levies, levies don't have that right. So immediately they become levy, it means that 5% of the 17.5 on which you were getting a credit now becomes a levy and you have to add it to your cost because you can't claim it.
So the company is suffering.
It increases the
because
cost.
Because he's paying VAT for what he buys, but cannot charge the commensurate or net it off.
Yes. The remainder is VAT, so you are getting it. But instead of getting your credit for 17.5,
you get for 12.
Exactly, 12.5.
So that's the problem the previous government created
one of the problem,
by the way they structured their VAT.
Exactly, because there's something called cascading in taxation. Because you cannot claim, you add it to your cost.
So my costs go up as a company.
Exactly. But then remember, the company which is doing the advertisement is not the consumer. So they also add a higher, because you are charging on a higher.
Everybody's paying more. So business costs become higher.
So it's cascading.
The only person who benefits is the government collecting the money.
So it's,
because they are collecting both the levy and they are charging upfront.
That is where I hope it's so complicated.
No, I think it's clear.
It's clear.
So you have explained why the previous government's VAT got to 21%, and people were so against it.
Yeah, but you are thinking, even for the government, you are thinking that I'm going to get more money. But remember that businesses, when the costs become burdensome,
They will find ways of
evasion avoidance.
Wonderful. So has this government, okay, why has this government not changed that? Because when Atufosin read the budget, he did not change the VAT calculation.
It's going to be changed. In fact, as we speak, remember he made a promise that the VAT as a major tax, and we have 4 major taxes, but I don't want to confuse.
Yeah.
We'll come to it.
So he will change
as
it?
a major tax, yes. And he said that we are going to, as the IMF and other, institutions that have worked in other countries, to bring us back. And so the fund has actually come as we speak.
So they are going to calculate how to change it. You can't do it
No,
yourself.
they are going to advise us on we know.
So do it. Why do you need IMF to help you do it?
Under the homegrown, yes. But remember, we're in a fund program, so we need to let them know.
But since we know everything wrong with the previous government's work, you don't need IMF to tell us how to change it.
No, we don't.
Just reverse the levy.
Yeah, we have a program.
Because the COVID levy is still there.
I'm saying that.
But the fact that you have a program, that means IMF should have to tell you how to recalculate your VAT.
No, not necessarily. What I'm saying is that we have a program.
Yeah.
And one of the indices in the program is that you have a revenue projection line which the fund is monitoring. So you must convince them that when you remove that revenue, right, you are going to strengthen its administration in order that it doesn't result in further loss in revenue.
I hear you.
Yes.
We'll take a break. This is the point of view. My guest is Seth Terkper. Earlier today, he launched this book, VAT. Very big book. I wanted to start reading it. When I started, Charlie, it's a powerful book, wild book. We'll talk about this book. I'm interested in what happened in Terkper and some of the issues that surrounded the tax, because he's captured them in this book. We'll also talk about how he sees the next 3.5 years of this government. Stay with us.